Bigfoot is, by definition, big. Some say they grow to be 800 pounds. Could they really climb a tree and hang up there without breaking those branches? Or is this something else?
The famous Bigfoot footage, known as the Patterson-Gimlin film, is 100% real, authentic, and shows a living Sasquatch.
Trail cameras are designed to catch what moves in the wild when no one is around. Deer, bears, and sometimes things we can't explain. A recent image, captured deep in the wilderness, shows a massive upright figure lurking among the trees. Skeptics say it's just a shadow or a bear on its hind legs, but others believe this could be the proof we've been waiting for. In this video, we'll analyze the image, compare it to past sightings, and see if this could finally be real Bigfoot evidence. Salish Sasquatch is a YouTube channel known for its remarkable collection of Sasquatch evidence. Run by Jonathan and Sarah Brown, they live on an Indian reservation in Washington state, where they document encounters, tribal stories, and unexplained activity from their own property. Among their most compelling pieces of evidence is a thermal video capturing what they believe to be a Sasquatch. The footage has gained widespread attention, even being analyzed by experts and skeptics alike. One of the biggest debates surrounding the footage is whether the figure in the thermal video is a Sasquatch or something more mundane, like a cow. Some skeptics argue that a cow wouldn't just walk casually across the screen if a Sasquatch were nearby. However, others point out that the cow in the footage also walks directly in front of Ben and John without any hesitation, suggesting it is familiar with both the humans and whatever else might be in the area.
Yeah, you saw in that video the shoulders and the head.
After all of my analysis, I've never been able to come up with any alternative explanation. Other than that, it's a Sasquatch.
The cow's indifference raises an interesting question. If the creature in the background were another animal, would the cow react differently? It's clear that whatever is in the footage, it isn't disturbing the natural behavior of the other animals. To further examine the footage, the Browns invited Phil Pauling, an experienced investigator, to review the evidence. Phil takes a methodical approach, breaking down the details of the footage with an investigator's mindset. His analysis confirms that the object in question emits body heat, ruling out inanimate objects or illusions. The shape appears broad at the shoulders, resembling the upper half of a large humanoid figure rather than any known animal. He also takes into account environmental factors such as the surrounding forest, the distance from the camera, and the possible obstructions. His thorough breakdown aims to answer the biggest question: if this isn't a Sasquatch, then what else could it be?
And there was cows behind us right here. And the thing about that night, the rancher was moving some cows out.
Every piece of the puzzle points toward an upright, heat-emitting figure of significant size. See for yourself as the analysis takes a deeper dive into this mystery.
Many believe that this shows the head, shoulders, and chest area of a large Bigfoot.
Accurately determining the size of the figure is another crucial part of this investigation. Researcher David Ellis attempts a size comparison by positioning himself in the same spot where the footage was captured. However, the initial measurements don't align with the original scene, forcing the team to recalibrate their approach. After making adjustments, they find that the figure in the footage stands approximately 7 feet tall and is 4 feet wide at the shoulders. Additional comparisons reveal that even when standing at a higher elevation for scale, a human subject appears much smaller than the figure in the thermal footage. The difference in size and mass is unmistakable, reinforcing the idea that this is no ordinary creature. As measurements continue, more compelling details emerge about the scale of what was captured that night.
My hope is to examine and make an attempt to explain the findings. I think the first thing would be to get a better understanding as to the lay of the land and the scene.
To eliminate the possibility that the figure is simply a trick of the landscape or an illusion, the team reconstructs the scene using precise mapping techniques. Their findings indicate that the figure is not on top of the ridge, but just beyond it, standing on a narrow footpath that runs parallel to the upper ridge. This placement aligns with the location of discovered footprints, adding another layer of evidence to support the idea that something massive was standing there that night. The thermal footage is then overlaid with daytime photos taken from the same location, confirming that the shape seen in the footage is much larger than an average human. Despite attempts to explain the sighting through alternative theories, the evidence consistently points back to a living, heat-emitting figure of significant size. The reconstruction reveals just how massive this figure truly is.
This is the estimated angle of the cow trail, showing a Bigfoot in the location where the tracks were found and cast.
One of the most common criticisms of the footage is that the figure doesn't move. However, Bigfoot researcher Tony stabilizes the footage to show otherwise. When slowed down and analyzed, subtle swaying movements become apparent, shifts in weight, slight rocking motions, and even what appears to be controlled breathing.
But the location of the thermal image is a different story. A short drop to a narrow path, and then a sweeping steep drop beyond the path to the pasture that lays about 40 feet below.
These micro-movements further separate the figure from a stationary object or an animal lying still. The way it shifts side to side is consistent with what has been reported in other Sasquatch encounters, where witnesses describe large, humanoid creatures rocking slightly while observing their surroundings. The stabilization provides a clearer view of the movements that might be missed at first glance. Look closely and judge for yourself.
Just go along slowly. There's a bit of a sort of a sway there, left to right, back and forth.
Despite multiple expert reviews, no definitive explanation has been found that fully debunks the claim that this is a Sasquatch. From the heat signature to the sheer size and anatomical details, every aspect of the footage remains a fascinating mystery. Whether a believer or a skeptic, this case presents compelling evidence that deserves serious consideration. Could this be one of the clearest thermal captures of a Sasquatch ever recorded? Or is there still an unknown explanation waiting to be uncovered? Let us know what you think in the comments.
Hey fam, ready for nightmares? Check out Knock Knock for the scariest, most bone-chilling encounters caught on camera. Link in the description. If you dare.
Adirondacks is a YouTube channel famous for deep wilderness investigations, capturing strange and unexplainable encounters in the vast, untamed forests of the Adirondacks. The man behind the camera, Jonathan Rafferty, has spent years tracking what he believes to be an intelligent, elusive species. One that leaves behind footprints, vocalizations, and structures that defy simple explanations. Tonight's expedition is set deep in the wilderness, where he hopes to document more evidence of the creatures he suspects are watching from the shadows. The night is filled with tension as he presses forward, carefully navigating through snow-covered terrain. The goal is simple: leave offerings of apples and bananas in hopes of enticing something to interact. With a fresh snowfall blanketing the forest, any movement will leave tracks, making this the perfect opportunity to gather new evidence.
You know, I hate to have my head up and everything, because really honestly, like, they don't want to let light shine right in their eyeballs.
The deeper he moves into the wilderness, the more the landscape begins to feel untouched, as if no human has set foot there for a long time. It's the kind of place where something could be watching, something that doesn't want to be seen. The camera catches every step, every crunch of snow underfoot, and every flicker of movement in the dense trees surrounding him. Then, something unusual happens. A sound pierces through the night, echoing across the forest.
What a welcome treat that is. I mean, yeah, sure, they can find their own food. You know, cold, dead rabbit.
It's a bark, but not just any bark. At first, it resembles the sound of a house dog, but the location makes no sense. The noise is coming from the exact area where he was previously whistled at, raising immediate suspicion. Coyotes don't bark like this, and it doesn't fit the usual calls of wild animals in the region. Could this be something else? Something mimicking a dog? The thought alone is chilling.
I'm gonna have to free up a hand because I got a dog out here. I don't want to be fighting no dogs.
The camera captures the eerie stillness of the forest, the sound of the barking echoing through the trees, creating an atmosphere thick with uncertainty. Watch closely as the sound grows louder, creating a moment that will leave you questioning what truly roams these woods. As he moves forward, the situation becomes even more unsettling. There are fresh tracks in the snow, tracks that resemble those of a dog, yet something about them seems off. He follows them carefully, every step bringing him closer to the unknown. A decision has to be made. If this is truly a lost dog, he doesn't want to harm it. But if it's something else, something imitating the sound of a dog, what then?
They don't bark like that.
The air is heavy with anticipation, every shadow now holding the possibility of something lurking just beyond the reach of the flashlight. Strange things happen in the woods, and tonight is no exception. The tension is undeniable as the moment unfolds on camera. See for yourself as the tracks lead deeper into the wilderness, raising more questions than answers. The night takes an even stranger turn when he begins using vocalizations, hooting and calling out in an attempt to elicit a response. The wilderness has its own language, and sometimes calling out can stir the unknown. The reaction is unexpected. A powerful scream erupts from another mountaintop, far off in the distance. The sheer force of the sound sends a wave of adrenaline through the moment, as if something out there is responding. Is this a Sasquatch answering back? Or is it something else entirely?
Somebody's beagle running rabbits? Maybe that's what they're doing. Somebody's up here hunting rabbit. He's dang beagle.
Whatever it is, it's large, distant, but undeniably real. The forest suddenly feels more alive, as if the night has shifted in an unexplainable way. Experience this moment as the scream echoes through the mountains, a sound that challenges everything we think we know about the deep wilderness. The expedition continues, with the realization that something is out here, moving in the same darkness. Whether it's a dog, a coyote, or something far more elusive, the night has delivered more than expected. The search isn't over, it's only just beginning. Every sound, every track, and every moment adds to the growing mystery of what truly resides in these remote regions. The evidence is mounting, and with each passing night, the line between legend and reality becomes thinner. What will be found next? Only time and the wilderness will tell. Southern Ontario Sasquatch is a YouTube channel famous for exploring mysterious forest structures that seem to appear in the wilderness without explanation. The channel follows years of first-hand encounters, starting with a life-changing sighting during a solo berry-picking trip. Since then, the search has never stopped, revealing strange and intricate formations deep in the woods. These structures often consist of carefully placed branches, twisted twine, and even artificial objects like fabric and plastic string, leading to endless speculation about their origins. Some believe they are the work of forest beings. Others see them as mimicry of human shelters. But the patterns are undeniable.
Last fall, against this fallen tree were these small branches stood.
These formations follow a unique style that continues to evolve. Deep within an area that hasn't been visited in 7 months, something unexpected appears. Last fall, against a massive fallen tree, a collection of small standing branches formed an unusual display. Now, something even stranger has been added. A larger branch, perfectly positioned, as if it was carefully placed rather than randomly fallen.
This Y branch right here is just being balanced on the ground.
Just beyond, an improvised canopy-like structure takes shape. balancing on a Y-shaped branch with a tree crossing overhead. The presence of plastic string, seemingly tied with purpose, raises even more questions. It wraps tightly around the branches, securing them in place as if someone, or something, wants them to hold firm. Even more curiously, another branch has been woven into the structure without offering any visible support. Every detail suggests intent. But by whom? Watch closely, and the evidence speaks for itself. Moving deeper into the forest, an even larger structure comes into view, one that defies explanation. In November, it was already an impressive sight, but now it has grown into something almost architectural. The complexity of the roof alone challenges any assumption that this is a naturally fallen arrangement. Layers of branches interlock in a way that seems too deliberate to be random. The creators, whoever they may be, seem to specialize in building overhead covers, forming intricate roofs across the landscape. Some believe it's a form of mimicry, an attempt to replicate human shelters without fully understanding their function. Others argue that these are protective barriers, marking an unseen presence in the wilderness. The craftsmanship of this particular roof suggests a level of planning that goes beyond accidental placement. Each element is carefully woven into the next, balancing on live trees, leaning against massive fallen trunks, and even incorporating freshly snapped branches, still green with moisture. The structure is not just growing, it's evolving. There is something extraordinary happening here, and the evidence is undeniable.
Oh my God! It's blowing mine, because it wasn't anywhere near as finished as this in the fall. All it was, this is built on a massive, enormous Y branch.
Further along the riverbank, an unexpected discovery brings even more questions.
And again, this is along the same river where my teddy bear showed up, where the fire came through, where I found about 15 structures all in that one particular area.
The site where a teddy bear once mysteriously appeared is now a graveyard of structures, with nearly 15 of them scattered across the landscape. Some remain intact, while others have been altered or destroyed, possibly by a fire that passed through the area. What stands out most is a peculiar fire pit, one that has never been lit.
A couple random stones, brick, piece of old asphalt it looks like. A few pieces of wood. Nothing's been burned. Nice sitting log. Little piece of paper. Does it look like it's all ready to be lit?
Arranged in a near-perfect circle, stones, old asphalt, and bits of wood form the illusion of a human-made campsite. But the details tell a different story. A sitting log is positioned as if waiting for someone, and a small piece of paper is placed at the center, as though prepared to be burned. But there are no signs of ash, no scorch marks, nothing that suggests a real fire was ever started. It's as if someone, or something, is imitating human behavior without fully understanding it. Could this be another sign of mimicry? A symbolic recreation of something seen but never experienced? The mystery only deepens as more details emerge. Each discovery raises more questions than answers. These structures, whether intentional or coincidental, follow a pattern too distinct to ignore. Are they remnants of a lost human presence? Or do they belong to something far older, something hiding in plain sight? Whatever the answer, the forest holds its secrets well, and the search for truth continues. Western Bigfoot Exploration is a YouTube channel dedicated to uncovering the mysteries of Bigfoot in the rugged and remote landscapes of the western United States. Jonathan, an experienced hiker and backpacker, ventures deep into the wilderness, far beyond where most have dared to go, in search of evidence. With each journey, he dives into the history of the land, explores the legends surrounding the creature, and brings his audience along for the adventure.
When they were making the logging roads in, and that's when Tom Slick found this camp on the map.
For some, the belief in Bigfoot is built on thousands of eyewitness accounts. Others approach it scientifically, examining footprints, vocalizations, and patterns of reported sightings. And then there are those who don't see it as a belief at all. It's a fact, something they know is real because they've seen it with their own eyes. In Northern California, one location has become synonymous with these encounters: Bluff Creek.
Jerry Crew's finding down there, and it wasn't but a couple of miles upriver, up creek, where they had the fuel barrel stash, that Jerry Crew found the fuel barrels thrown into the creek too.
In the late 1950s and early 70s, logging crews working deep in the forests of Six Rivers National Forest returned to town with unsettling stories. Massive footprints appeared overnight. Heavy machinery was inexplicably overturned. Large humanoid figures lurked in the trees. In 1958, a road construction worker named Jerry Crew discovered enormous footprints in the dirt. His Hoopa native co-workers recognized them instantly, claiming they belonged to a giant that had always lived in these lands. Crew made a plaster cast of one of the tracks, and when a Eureka journalist published the story, it gained national attention. The legend of Bigfoot had taken root. On the afternoon of October 20th, 1967, everything changed. As they rode along the creek, a massive root system blocked their view of the path ahead. Rounding the bend, they spotted something moving. Patterson's horse reared, throwing him off, but in the chaos he managed to grab his camera. Sprinting forward, he fumbled with the device, but kept filming. The figure moved methodically through the clearing, its muscular frame unmistakable. The footage that followed would become the most famous Bigfoot evidence in history. Watch closely, something worth seeing happens here.
Tree with a large root system impeding their view of what lie ahead, and when they turned the corner.
The daylight faded fast. Knowing the storm was closing in, Patterson and Gimlin documented the footprints left behind. Patterson swapped out the film under a tarp, still unsure whether he had captured anything of value. The rain hit hard the next morning, turning the route back into a treacherous mess of mud and washed-out trails. Gimlin skillfully navigated their truck out of the forest, determined to get the film developed. Once back, Patterson wasted no time. He met with Al Hodgson, a Bigfoot researcher and store owner in Willow Creek, urging him to visit the site. He insisted the footprints couldn't have been faked. There was only one set, no disturbances, suggesting a hoax. Soon, experts arrived, including journalist John Green and taxidermist Bob Titmus. Their conclusion? The prints were legitimate. More than 50 years have passed, but Bluff Creek remains a place of mystery.
Bigfoot stuff like that seems to happen all the time. Why don't you film it? Well, because my camera was low. How was your camera low?
Jonathan sets out to retrace the footsteps of Patterson and Gimlin, venturing into the same dense forests. Navigating the thick brush, he quickly realizes how challenging the terrain is. The steep embankments, tangled vegetation, and winding creeks create a near impenetrable environment. Watch this carefully. This moment is telling.
Here goes that famous root ball. So this is what I'm guessing. We went down this way, and I believe this is the way I already said.
As night falls, exhaustion sets in. Sitting by the fire, Jonathan watches the surrounding darkness, hoping his night vision camera will capture something moving in the trees. Then, a sound breaks the silence.
Did you hear that?
A long, resonant call echoes down the canyon. It's deep, powerful, unlike any known animal in the area. Listen closely, this could be important.
Did you hear that?
Just when it seems the night couldn't get any stranger, lights appear in the distance. At first, they resemble distant car lights flickering through the trees. Then, figures approach the camp, unexpected visitors.
There was someone squatching on Onion Lake Road. I We just heard a Sasquatch.
I see lights coming from over there. They look like car lights.
Rowdy Kelly of the Bluff Creek Project and his friend Greg have arrived, bringing new energy to the search. As morning comes and the group packs up camp, something strange is recorded on camera. A 7.5-minute clip shows everyone standing within a few steps of each other. Then, less than a minute later, an anomaly appears. Something unexplainable. Review this footage carefully. Bluff Creek still holds its secrets. The footprints, the film, the stories. They all point to something existing in these woods, something that continues to evade discovery. Whether it's an undiscovered species, a lost primate, or something beyond explanation, one thing is certain: the search is far from over. Could something still be moving through these forests, hidden just beyond the firelight? The Freeman footage had long been a subject of debate, yet somehow it hadn't been explored in depth here before. Among the countless pieces of supposed Sasquatch evidence, this one stood out, not just because of what it showed, but because of the man who filmed it. Captured in 1994 by Paul Freeman, a U.S. Forest Service patrolman, the footage had a certain weight to it, something that set it apart from the usual shaky, grainy glimpses of dark figures in the woods. And yet, its reputation teetered between being one of the most compelling pieces of evidence and just another blob squatch. But was that really fair? The footage began with an unsteady camera, shifting between dense trees and rough terrain. And then, there it was. A dark, hulking figure moved through the forest, its shape almost unnatural. Broad, heavy, with a strange fluidity to its motion. It wasn't just a man in a suit, at least not in any ordinary sense. It had bulk, a mass that seemed to shift with each step, as if its entire body was one singular unit, rather than a collection of moving parts. It was easy to dismiss at first glance, but the longer one stared, the more unsettling it became.
Oh, there he goes.
Freeman himself had always been a curious figure. He wasn't just some random hiker with a camcorder. He had experience tracking wildlife in the forests of Washington, specifically in the Mill Creek watershed east of Walla Walla. He knew what belonged in these woods and what didn't. And in the years leading up to the footage, he had made claims, bold ones, about finding tracks, following trails, and even encountering these creatures firsthand. To some, this made him credible. To others, it made him suspicious. The footage, however, spoke for itself. When stabilized, it became even more striking. The creature moved deliberately, as if aware of being watched. There was no frantic scrambling, no attempt to run. It simply strode forward with the kind of presence that suggested confidence rather than fear. It looked unnatural, but not in the way a man in a costume might. Something about it felt off.
Doesn't it? This was filmed by Paul Freeman in 1994. It's often considered the pinnacle of blob squatchery.
Freeman had described the creature's legs as disproportionately small compared to its body. And while the footage didn't provide a perfect view, there was a sense that this wasn't a typical human frame. The shape was difficult to define, shifting slightly with the camera's motion, and yet it remained imposing. Scrubbing through the footage only made it clearer. This wasn't just an ordinary movement pattern. There was something distinct about it, something that set it apart.
Obviously, Bigfoot have arms and legs and a head and stuff, so please don't misunderstand me, but I think you know what I mean.
Something that set it apart. Skepticism surrounded the footage, as it always did with sightings like this. Dr. Jeff Meldrum, an expert in primate locomotion, was one of the few professionals who took a serious look at the evidence. Initially, he didn't trust what he was seeing. It was too convenient, too well aligned with everything he had studied.
There's about 6 minutes of footage before it makes its appearance. He also claimed that the trackway he was filming wasn't particularly good.
Bigfoot evidence was never this clear. It was supposed to be frustratingly vague, always just beyond reach. And yet, here it was. Freeman had spent 6 minutes filming tracks before the creature appeared. He even admitted that the trackway itself wasn't particularly impressive. Stranger still, he had used old film instead of fresh tape, which could have improved the footage's quality. Was that suspicious? Maybe. But sometimes things just happened that way.
Quality would be higher had it been new, and you could say that's sus, but it's also life. The videographer, Paul Freeman, was born in 1943 and passed away in 2003.
What caught Meldrum's attention most weren't just the footprints Freeman had collected over the years, but the details within them. Marks so intricate they seemed impossible to fake. Dermal ridges, subtle scarring, even signs of wear that remained consistent across multiple tracks. One footprint in particular stood out. As the drizzle fell over the print, something unexpected happened. The skin texture, barely visible, began to fade before Meldrum's eyes. It was as if the moisture was erasing a real imprint rather than exposing an artificial one. That was difficult to ignore.
Scarring on the dermals that remained consistent over years, so much so that individuals could be rather easily identified.
Even more perplexing was a partial footprint. Only the front half pressed into the ground, the heel lifted mid-stride. If it were made by a rigid fake foot, the entire sole would have made contact. Instead, it moved as a real foot would, shifting weight from front to back, bending in a way that suggested something alive had left it behind. Then there was the knuckle print.
Curled over protruding stones, while in others, the toes pushed the stones deeper into the ground. The same stamp can't do both.
Freeman had once shown Meldrum what he believed was one of the most detailed toe impressions he had ever seen. But when Meldrum looked at it, his reaction was immediate. That wasn't a foot. It was a fist. A knuckle print, belonging to something that had pressed its hand into the ground with force. If this was a hoax, it was an oddly detailed one. Why go through the trouble of fabricating an anatomical feature that even the hoaxer himself didn't recognize for what it was?
The find that Dr. Meldrum found that day was a partial print, and he said it would simply have been impossible to stamp without the other half making contact.
This was where skepticism became tangled with curiosity. If Freeman had faked this, he had done so in a way that suggested either an absurd level of knowledge or complete coincidence. And if he hadn't faked it, then what exactly were people looking at? The inevitable question always surfaced: where was the body? It was the argument that skeptics clung to the most. If these creatures existed, why hadn't anyone found definitive remains? The answer, however, wasn't as simple as people assumed. Tracking wasn't easy. In fact, it was an ancient skill that few had truly mastered. Animals didn't just leave their remains out in the open. In the remote wilderness of Washington state, nature reclaimed everything. A body left to the elements would vanish faster than people realized, broken down by scavengers, soil, and time itself.
One such example of this conundrum was when Freeman showed Meldrum a cast of what he said were some of the best toes he'd ever cataloged. And Meldrum said, "No, that's a fist. That's knuckle."
The absence of a body wasn't proof of absence. It was just an inconvenience, one that made belief harder but not impossible. It was easy to dismiss, just as it was easy to get lost in the details that made it compelling. Tracking was difficult, requiring skill, patience, and time, 3 things most people didn't have. It was one thing to speculate from a distance, but how many people could truly afford to drop everything and march into the mountains for weeks on end? Washington's forests weren't forgiving. The terrain itself fought against you. Searching for definitive proof wasn't just about belief, it was about endurance.
Eventually he'd come to it, or something to that effect, though usually the verbiage is a bit more on the rude side. Well, 1, tracking is hard.
And that was the question at the heart of the Freeman footage. Was it real? Or was it just another footnote in the long, frustrating search for the unknown? It was easy to dismiss, just as it was easy to get lost in the details that made it compelling. The answer, as always, hovered somewhere in the space between doubt and wonder. But for those who had seen it, the raw, unfiltered movement of that dark figure in the trees, it was difficult to shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, they were looking at something they weren't meant to see.
Witnesses, and a plethora of pieces of evidence that span too much time and distance to ignore. But the fossils aren't there.
Unexplained Maine is a YouTube channel famous for its deep dives into mysteries, from Bigfoot to UFOs and the paranormal. A group of friends ventures into Maine's vast wilderness, searching for answers to the unexplained. One of their investigations leads them to Mount Kineo, a place rich with history and strange encounters. The state of Maine is a land of untouched beauty, with 90% of it covered in dense forests. This makes it an ideal setting for cryptid sightings, and for one family, an encounter with a strange creature changed their lives forever. Mount Kineo itself has an extensive past, dating back thousands of years. Native American tribes from across New England once traveled there, drawn by a unique type of stone called rhyolite, which was even more durable than flint.
It was called rhyolite. Rhyolite worked so well, better than flint, and it held the edge a lot better.
It was so valuable that different tribes, some who were known enemies, put aside their conflicts just to access it. In the mid-1800s, settlers built a tavern on the island, and by the 1880s, a grand hotel stood there, attracting the wealthiest travelers from across the country. One of the researchers, a seasoned outdoorsman, hikes deep into the back trails, away from the well-traveled paths.
It gets close to you to a point. When those noises get close enough to you,
yes,
that's when it usually cuts off, because that's when they don't want you to know where they are.
As he moves through the thick underbrush, he suddenly hears loud crashing noises. The sound is rhythmic, steady, deliberate. Unlike the erratic movement of a moose or deer, this noise suggests something moving on two legs. He calls out, asking if someone is there. Silence. Then, just beyond the tree line, a massive black figure moves quickly behind a tree before vanishing from sight.
But there was just this one section where I could see a black figure standing, just go behind the tree.
The thick forest swallows whatever it was, and the sound stops entirely. With no time to investigate further, he pushes forward at a rapid pace, covering miles in record time to catch the last ferry off the island. Watch for yourself and decide if something more than just wildlife was lurking in those woods.
You know, so I kept listening to it, and it went on probably for a good 100 feet.
Not convinced, he returns to Mount Kineo the following week, this time avoiding the main trails. Instead of climbing up toward the tower, he takes a long detour, venturing into the most isolated part of the island. This time, he doesn't hear anything at first. No strange noises, no crashing movement, just the distant sound of red squirrels chattering in the trees.
I got on the trail, and it's rough going along there. And I didn't hear anything except...
But as he presses further into the untouched terrain, he finds himself scaling rugged ledges and maneuvering through dense brush. In these silent, hidden areas, away from the noise of human activity, he believes something could be watching. The real question is, what? Watch closely as he explores an area where few dare to venture.
Yeah, I go into rough spots, because if you go to the quiet spots that people don't want to go.
The idea of a massive creature surviving in this region seems more possible when considering the vastness of the wilderness. Looking west from Mount Kineo, the land stretches out for miles, an unbroken expanse leading toward Pittston Farm.
So if you were a 10-foot tall, intelligent, bipedal creature, and I'm not even saying all Bigfoot are bipedal, because there's plenty of sightings where they're on all fours.
This is where another researcher previously discovered a set of enormous footprints crossing an open field before disappearing into the forest. Out here, human presence is rare, making it the perfect place for something to remain unseen.
Some of the biggest black bear in the state are from up in that area.
Oh yeah.
Some of the largest black bears in the state roam these areas, but could something else be calling this land home? The thought lingers as they recall how difficult it is to move through this terrain. The woods are dense, the undergrowth is thick, and every step is a challenge. But for those who seek the unknown, the effort is worth it. It's not just about finding something. It's about proving that the impossible might just be real. Watch and hear what makes this area the perfect hiding place for something undiscovered. In their ongoing search, one pattern keeps emerging: unexplained wood structures deep in the wilderness. These aren't fallen trees or storm damage. They appear deliberately placed, forming tepee-like formations or strange barriers.
And pay attention to it.
Sure.
And then also pay attention to the way trees are laying on the ground. Some of them are like a barrier, almost kind of directing you.
Some believe they serve as markers, almost like a cryptid's version of a trail system. Others suspect they could be signs of communication between unknown entities. Experienced outdoorsmen recognize the difference between natural occurrences and something intentionally constructed. The consistency of these structures raises more questions than answers. In one discovery, they find something particularly strange. On top of an X-shaped formation, a dead frog is carefully placed, as if left there on purpose. Who, or what, could be responsible for these eerie arrangements? Watch for yourself and decide if these structures could be evidence of something more. Bigfoot Research is a YouTube channel famous for its ongoing investigations into the elusive creature, uncovering mysterious evidence deep in the Arizona wilderness. Led by Mitchell Waite and Susan Farnsworth, the team is determined to uncover the truth, and this latest discovery may be their most compelling yet. As they trek through rugged terrain, they stumble upon something that stops them in their tracks: a massive nest-like structure, carefully constructed.
Okay, everybody stand around it so we can get a size perspective.
You need to film this, Dan. And unlike anything they've seen before, the sheer size and design of it leave no doubt that something, or someone, built this with purpose. The nest is large enough for a human to fit inside.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, a person could do this for a makeshift shelter, but I wouldn't want to sleep with the bugs. It's
This
like
is
people
a-
do tents.
This is a lot of effort.
Yeah, this is all eaten up.
But it's not built like any typical shelter. It has a concealed entrance, branches pulled over to form a cover, making it blend seamlessly into the environment. It's almost as if it was designed to be hidden.
That was an individual spot over there.
Yeah.
And this looks like an individual spot
Maybe
over
they
here.
have different, like, lookouts or something? Okay, you over there and you over here. And...
Well, this...
The team examines its structure closely, noting how the entrance appears to be intentionally covered to provide protection from the elements or from prying eyes. They stand around it, trying to get a sense of its scale, and the reality of their discovery begins to sink in. This is not a random pile of debris. This is a shelter, one that appears deliberately designed. See for yourself as they uncover this incredible find.
It doesn't fan out very much bigger, but it does a little. I still think this is still under construction.
Questioning what kind of creature could have built it. Determined to get a closer look, the team inches forward. The nest is not just an exterior shell. It has depth. The inside is partially hollowed out, with layers of debris placed with clear intention.
And there are sticks in here that have been propped up on the sides.
It's not entirely finished, as if something has been adding to it over time, adjusting and expanding it. The team debates whether this could be an unfinished construction, possibly used seasonally or still being worked on. If it was meant for warmth, its compact design would make perfect sense, retaining heat in colder months. But that only raises more questions. Why go through so much effort to build this out here, in the middle of nowhere? The level of detail suggests intelligence, something that understands shelter building beyond simple survival instincts.
I'm too wide in the shoulders to get further in. So whatever it is smaller than me.
The possibility that this nest was crafted by an unknown creature becomes harder to ignore. Watch as the team analyzes the structure, considering its purpose and what kind of being might use it. The mystery deepens as one of the investigators decides to crawl inside.
We're gonna go down and take a look inside. It's got a door to it too.
Yeah. Armed with an infrared camera, he pushes forward, peering into the darkness. The interior is tighter than expected, but it extends back further than it initially appeared. The walls are lined with carefully placed sticks, reinforcing the idea that this is more than just a random formation. Then, something catches his eye.
It's moving? Yeah, it's moving.
You might want to, might want to vacate. Yeah.
Oh, it's looking at me now.
A dark shape lingers at the far end of the nest. It's small, barely visible, but it moves. A wave of unease washes over the team as the realization hits. Something is inside. The investigator tries to make sense of what he's seeing, but the camera struggles to capture the details. Whatever it is, it's watching him. He knows he's intruding on something's space, and for a brief moment, there's an eerie silence. Then, with a cautious retreat, he backs out.
I think I'll back out.
I think that'd be a good idea.
Leaving the mysterious occupant undisturbed. What was in there? Was it an animal taking shelter, or something more? Witness this tense moment as the team processes what they just encountered. With every discovery, the evidence continues to grow. The snapped branches, the carefully placed materials, the hidden design of the nest. Each detail adds another piece to the puzzle. The Arizona wilderness holds secrets that have yet to be uncovered, and with every step forward, the mystery of Bigfoot only deepens. What else might be out here just beyond the reach of the camera lens? The search continues. Hellbent Holler is a tech-driven, boots-on-the-ground investigation team focused on Sasquatch, Dogman, and the paranormal. Hailing from the Carolinas, Hellbent Holler is a two-person research team that investigates all manners of high strangeness in the southern Appalachians.
18 hours ago, we get this report that two guys were traveling down an old Forest Service road.
From the forests of the land between the lakes to the mountains of North Georgia, Hellbent Holler takes a tech-driven, yet unconventional approach to exploring mysterious phenomena. The duo has researched Sasquatch, Dogman, anomalous lights, and wilderness paranormal activity. Hellbent Holler consists of Joe, who has spent the last 2 decades looking into the existence of Bigfoot in the southern states, and Jesse Lee, a longtime researcher of the paranormal and occult. The two members combine, and sometimes contrast, their research methods and philosophies on various phenomena to create a unique and holistic approach to their search for answers.
Say, Sasquatch is a thing that is so close to nature, like deer. When they know and sense a major weather event coming, it seems like they get out of Dodge, they go to safety.
Less than 18 hours ago, we received a report from this area. Here's what's crazy about it. 18 hours ago, we got this report that two guys were traveling down an old Forest Service road
when they saw a dark figure in the middle of the road, and it darted off to the right into the forest.
When they saw a dark figure in the middle of the road. It darted off to the right into the forest. They got in touch with us because they know about our channel. They've seen our channel before, and we decided to mobilize. What's crazy about this too is that less than 12 hours ago, a crazy storm hit. Here, we've got a bit of a path going off into the woods. Do you want to kind of go into this? Yeah, let's check that out. Hey, you got a lot of creek bed running back through here, so I can get my chest pan. There we go. All right, let me look over here real quick. Lots of old creek beds crisscrossing back through here, boy.
It's headed that way. Whatever this is, take a look. What does it look like to you?
Yeah, it does.
Looks like we're running into a lot of old creek beds through here. Now, areas like that are great for marking indentations very, very clearly.
Got a bit of a path going off into the woods here.
We do have a bit of a path. You want to kind of go into this?
Yeah, let's check that out.
Check this out right here. Now, this is in the middle of this roadbed, in the middle of this mud. So this got a deluge of water over the past 10 hours.
So this got a deluge of water over the past, 10 hours. This has just gotten a deluge of water.
This has just gotten a deluge of water, so this would have been gone. This is pretty recent. Now, it is still kind of washed out and faded a bit because it's taking on water right now.
So this would have been gone. This is pretty recent. Now it is still kind of washed out and faded a bit because it's taking on water right now.
But that is a very clear foot shape, isn't it? You can still see a little bit of the big toe mark.
But that is a very clear foot shape, isn't it?
You can still see a little bit of the big toe mark.
Yeah, right here.
You can still see a little bit of
Yeah, right here. You can still see a little bit of the big toe mark, but yeah, water is taking it away pretty quickly. But look, that's a print. That's fresh as all get out.
footprint you left normally is not anywhere near as deep as that.
So, and then look where you're at. We're downhill right.
That's super fresh. Yeah, and this area is so undisturbed, such a short time ago. So this is exciting. This is something super fresh. Do you want to head in that direction that it's going?
So this is something super fresh. This is
you want to head in that direction that it's going?
Yeah, it's going that way. Let's, it looks like there's some...
Yeah, it's going that way. It looks like there are some strange land formations that way too. So let's do it. Let's follow the track, follow the path, take us on in. There is a path of travel here that we're following right now. Got a drop off right up here.
Honestly, that looks like a thing. Look at the...
Look how, this is almost like a huge print to me.
That's a big one, and that is definitely headed in that direction.
Yeah, but you see this kind of...
I don't know how far. Look at this. What's going on? Weird. All right, let's take a look at this.
So this is something super fresh. This is
you want to head in that direction that it's going?
Yeah, it's going that way. Let's,
That's been bent over and thrust into this collection of brush and vines. This is a living tree right here, and it's bent and broken. So this is a living tree. You can't snap anything off of it.
This is a living tree right here. And it's bent and broken, so this is a living tree. You can't snap anything off of it.
It's a living tree. This is a living tree. There's a lot going on here right now. There's a lot going on. I'm going to step out of the way so you can get some good shots of that. Watch out. Are you okay? Holes. Yeah, I just went in a couple inches right here. All right, get a shot of that. Just take a... We need to be real careful. I don't know what's going on here. Okay, my foot is just going down in.
You got the heel here, and then that part, that inner part of that foot, that right foot right there. But there's a slide. You can see it in the mud here.
There's a pit, broken off at the base and leaned onto this as well. All of these are live trees. And then this other one has been bent over the live tree and has been pinned at the bottom here. This is bizarre.
18
inches. Oh boy. All right.
Yeah, so we're looking at the tip toe. Now listen.
This is a very complex situation here. I don't know what it is. There are some interesting bends over here I want to check out, and then we'll continue to follow this track.
A non-thing, but...
Honestly, that looks like a thing. Look at the...
Look how...
I'll go this way to check it out. You just follow me this way. Whoa, terrain's getting weird over here. There are some drop-offs, and then we're getting into some depressed areas over here.
Broken off at the base and leaned onto this as well. All of these are live trees.
And then this other one has been bent over the live...
Okay, so we got kind of a weird situation right here just adjacent to that other one. That is a dead tree. The one that's arched is dead. The roots were pulled out of the ground. The root ball is still attached. We're going to head over there in 1 second. Wind's getting worse. Yeah, we're going to need to kind of put it into high gear. World Bigfoot Central is a YouTube channel known for bringing up-to-date reports on Bigfoot, the paranormal, cryptids, alternative science, and conspiracies. With countless investigations and field research, the channel dives deep into eerie encounters and unexplained phenomena, bringing forward evidence that challenges what we believe to be true. These are the kinds of stories that leave people wondering, are we truly alone in the forests? Or is something watching from the shadows? In the depths of the Montana wilderness, a group of Bigfoot researchers embarks on a mission to relocate a specific area where they once captured footage of something lurking between the trees. The thick brush and rough terrain make navigation difficult, but their determination pushes them forward. They carefully retrace their steps, trying to line up the exact position from their previous sighting. However, something feels off. The forest seems eerily quiet, and a strange tension fills the air. As they search, they notice signs of disturbance. Branches unnaturally broken at high levels, faint impressions in the dirt, and an overwhelming sense that something is near. Then, they find it. The spot where the mysterious figure was last seen. The realization that they are standing in the same location sends chills down their spines. Are they alone, or is something watching them just as it did before? Watch closely as they document their findings and attempt to piece together the unsettling mystery.
Again, about the same size. Mr. 15-inch track here, running up and down the hillside.
As they push further into the wilderness, something unexpected appears in the soft earth. A massive footprint, deeply embedded in the ground. Measuring at least 15 inches, the print suggests an immense weight, unlike anything made by a human or known animal. The team carefully examines the track, noting its depth, the distinct toe impressions, and the way it follows an uphill path. With each step they take, more prints come into view, following a clear but eerie trail leading into the dense woods. The deeper they go, the more evident it becomes that something large was moving through the area recently. The real question is, was it just passing through, or is it still here, hiding in the shadows? Not far from this location, a seasoned hunter recounts a disturbing discovery in an entirely different setting. While moving through the woods, he begins to notice something odd. Freshly snapped tree limbs, all broken at exactly 7 feet high. The breaks are clean, unnatural, and follow a pattern along his trail. There had been no recent storms, no high winds, nothing that could explain such an unusual sight. His instincts tell him that these breaks weren't random. Years later, while gathered around a hunting camp, the hunter is caught off guard when another man unexpectedly brings up the topic of Bigfoot. What happens next shakes him to his core. The man correctly identifies the exact location of his first sighting without ever having been told. Confused and slightly unnerved, he listens as the man shares his own chilling experience. The story involves a duck hunter who had ventured into the woods, carrying his gear and searching for game, completely unaware of what he was about to witness. While tracking a fallen duck, the hunter approached a secluded pond, carefully making his way through thick, tangled brush. The footing was difficult, and it took time to reach the water's edge. But when he finally crested the embankment, he froze. Just a few feet away, standing waist-deep in the water, was something unlike anything he had ever seen before. It wasn't an animal, at least not one he recognized. It had a powerful build, dark fur, and a face that radiated intelligence, and something else. As the two locked eyes, the creature's expression changed. It bared its teeth and let out a low, menacing growl. Then, without breaking eye contact, it reached down, grabbed the duck, and bit off its head in one swift motion. Stunned, the hunter could do nothing but stand there, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. The moment felt like an eternity, but after a few seconds, the creature turned and disappeared into the trees, leaving behind nothing but ripples in the water. The hunter never spoke about the encounter for years, knowing that few would believe him. But hearing others share similar experiences made him realize he wasn't the only one. How many people have experienced something they can't explain but remain silent out of fear of ridicule? How often do we pass by evidence of something extraordinary without even realizing it? Could it be that creatures like Bigfoot exist right under our noses, moving through the wilderness undetected? If you had a first-hand encounter with the unknown, would you be willing to share it? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Western NY Sasquatch Research is a YouTube channel dedicated to unraveling the mysteries hidden deep within the forests of Western New York. A brother and sister duo lead this mission with a no-nonsense approach, determined to find the truth behind Sasquatch and other cryptids that may roam the land. Their investigations take them to rural areas, nature preserves, and Native American reservations, where they search for clues that might prove the existence of these elusive beings. Unlike others, they refuse to waste time on misinformation, instead sharing only what they genuinely uncover. Their findings suggest that these creatures are not only real, but may be more intelligent and organized than most believe. The latest journey brings them to a remote mountain as a storm rolls in. The investigator is so focused on navigating the terrain that they don't immediately realize they've lost their way. Without a functioning GPS, they rely on natural landmarks to find their way back. As the sky darkens, the sense of being watched intensifies. Strange shapes emerge from the shadows, figures that seem to be moving between the trees. The camera picks up what appears to be a Sasquatch walking, and another figure peeking from behind a tree. If it's a juvenile, it makes sense that the larger one would track every move, ensuring the safety of its young. More dark shapes shift in the background, almost blending into the thick forest. The investigator starts to recognize the distinct voices among the sounds, almost as if they are different individuals communicating. This isn't just random noise, it's something intelligent observing, responding, and waiting. Watch closely as these figures subtly move through the trees, barely visible but undeniably present. As the search continues, the feeling of being watched becomes overwhelming. The investigator acknowledges the presence of something unseen, speaking into the forest, not with fear, but with curiosity and respect. They leave small gifts, hoping to establish trust. A few pieces of fruit, nuts, and a mix of snacks placed carefully on a log. This isn't the first time they've done this, and the results are always unpredictable. Sometimes the offerings disappear without a trace. Other times they're moved or rearranged, almost as if something has taken them but left a subtle message behind. The atmosphere grows heavy with an unspoken energy. There are noises, faint and distant, but real. Footsteps? Maybe. A low hum vibrates through the air, unnatural and unexplainable. Then, something in the distance moves, too far to identify but impossible to ignore. The forest holds its secrets tightly, but the investigator is determined to find the truth. Watch as the moment unfolds, an eerie encounter with something just beyond reach. A fresh tree break comes into view, one that appears unnatural. These signs are scattered throughout Sasquatch hotspots, often thought to be territorial markers or a form of communication. This particular break looks older, but it's still significant. The investigator takes a moment to examine it, questioning whether it was done recently or if time has worn it down. These beings seem to manipulate the environment to their advantage, shaping their surroundings in ways that aren't always immediately obvious. As the investigator stands in the quiet, an unsettling hum cuts through the air again. It's low, almost mechanical, yet it blends with the natural sounds of the woods. The question lingers, what is making that noise? Is it something biological? Or could it be connected to something else entirely? The feeling of unseen eyes watching remains, creating an eerie tension that refuses to fade. Something is out there, and it's aware of the presence of an outsider. Watch as the investigator processes these strange occurrences, trying to make sense of the unexplainable. So, what do you think? Are these encounters proof that Bigfoot is real, or just the result of overactive imaginations? Have you or someone you know ever experienced something unexplainable in the woods? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your theories. And if you enjoyed this dive into the unknown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more. Until next time, stay curious, and maybe don't wander too deep into the forest alone.